And she has the audacity to point the finger at people that aren't wearing masks, that have not been proven to be effective, which we'll get to in another piece of information here, as being the culprits. When it's her own policies that killed more people in the state of Michigan than have died on some battlefields in some military conflicts around the world. Some other folks presented some information. They said, as of the end of July, 0.6% of the population of the United States lives in nursing homes and assisted living facilities. 0.6, as of the end of July now. And through their data, they stated that 53% of all deaths occurred in nursing homes and assisted living facilities. 0.6% of our population lives in nursing homes and assisted living facilities, and it comprises 53% of the deaths. And they want to keep the economies locked down. They want to keep the schools closed. They don't want you to vote in person. They don't want... Right. Because this is about politics. This is not about data or science. Magnificent Seven information number 5. Quote, there is no proven effectiveness, end quote. Netherlands refuses to mandate mask wearing in public. American public health experts, led by Anthony Fauci, we've discussed him before, have struggled over the past couple of months to push a scientific narrative on the public. Wearing a mask doesn't so much protect you from being infected with COVID-19, but you are infected. Wearing a mask could stop you from passing the virus to someone else. The mainstream media has backed up these assertions with vague references to science and research, while a coalition of celebrities and progressive activists have tried to tar anybody who doubts this narrative or worse, refuses to wear a mask at all times outside their home as a, quote, denier, end quote. Well, if everybody who is skeptical of the mask save lives period is a denier, then how does one explain the Dutch government's decision to refuse to mandate mask wearing? The Dutch government had decided that it would not advise the public to wear masks to slow the spread of coronavirus because their effectiveness has not yet been proven. The decision was announced by the Netherlands Minister for Medical Care, Tamara van Ark, following a review by the country's National Institute for Health. Here's what she said, quote, because from a medical perspective there is no proven effectiveness of masks, the cabinet has decided that there will be no national obligation for wearing non-medical masks, end quote. What do you know? Piece of information number 6 they don't want you to know about. The other day, Whitmer, Commandant Klink, the bogus commandant from Hogan's Heroes. Commandant Klink Whitmer came on and said, we're going to have there's this racism problem in our state and around the country, and that's why blacks are more prone to develop COVID-19, coronavirus. It's a racism issue, and the healthcare providers are racist, and they need to take courses in stopping their bias. Oh, excuse me, Corona Gretchen. What exact data was that based on? Well, there are more blacks and African Americans that have the virus percentage-wise, if you look at the population, than whites. Piece of information number 6: public transit use. Largely responsible for racial discrepancy in COVID-19 death rates. The fact is unavoidable. Black and Hispanic Americans have been dying of the coronavirus at rates 3.5 times those of white Americans. For weeks now, politicians and activists have cited these data as evidence that white supremacy does in fact exist. Since minorities, they argued, were more likely to work low-paid essential jobs at grocery stores and pharmacies. Okay. As it turns out, these theories, reported as if they were undeniable truths by the mainstream press, well, these higher mortality rates are likely connected to their higher use of public transit to commute to work, either via subway or bus. A study supervised and published by the University of Virginia economist John McLaren found that the racial discrepancy remained even after controlling for income and health insurance rates. At first, this result puzzled the team of economists until they examined these infection rates through a different lens. that of transportation. About 10.4% of black commuters take public transit versus 3.4% of white commuters. McLaren and his team found that by controlling for the use of public transit, the racial disparity in COVID-19 deaths becomes essentially negligible and far less pronounced. This suggests that no matter what your job or your race, one of the most dangerous things you can do to put yourself at risk during the outbreak is to rely on public transit, be it buses or subways. And remember, when New York got hit, remember their director of public health was encouraging people to get on the bus, get on the subway, come on downtown to Chinatown, and don't be a racist by not coming to Chinatown to celebrate the Chinese New Year. And then 2 weeks later, after everybody was using public transit and they didn't close it down fast enough, guess what happened? But they're too busy blaming white supremacy. No, it's their own policy actions. Number 7 of the Magnificent 7 pieces of information that they don't want you to know about. Big Pharma. Peter Glidden and I have gone off on this Big Pharma issues for months, years. Big Pharma is criminal influence on research exposed in secret recording of 2 prominent journals, Lancet out of Europe and the New England Journal of Medicine out of the United States, and discussions held by their editors-in-chief. A secretly recorded meeting between the editors-in-chief of the Lancet and the New England Journal of Medicine revealed both men bemoaning the, quote, criminal, end quote, influence Big Pharma has on scientific research. According to Philippe Dosblazy, France's former health minister, the leaked 2020 Chatham House closed-door discussion between the editors-in-chiefs of those 2 journals, whose publications both retracted papers favorable to Big Pharma over fraudulent data. These 2 journals, you wonder why, published data that were very critical of hydroxychloroquine and very favorable to Big Pharma's money-making operation drugs. Though many of us around the world threw up red flags and reviewed those articles in the New England Journal and the Lancet that were critical of hydroxy and voiced our concerns. And we were very vocal about it. And it led to Lancet and the New England Journal both pulling those articles that were critical of hydroxy and pulling them out and deeming them to be fraudulent, which they were. But this tells you why they were even published and why they thought they could get away with it. This is what Philippe Dosblazy reported on what was said at this meeting. Quote, this is the editors-in-chief of these journals. Quote, now we are not going to be able to basically, if this continues, publish any more clinical research data because the pharmaceutical companies are so financially powerful today and are able to use such methodologies as to have us accept papers which are apparently methodologically perfect, but which in reality manage to conclude what they want them to conclude, end quote. This was from the Lancet editor-in-chief, Richard Horton. According to Dosblazy, the editors-in-chief said the influences wielded by Big Pharma to influence publications is, quote, criminal, end quote. And you wonder why the effective treatment regimens that are very cheap, such as hydroxy plus zithromycin plus zinc, are put in a bad light. It's all about money. It's all about control. It's all about power. And it's not about the health and welfare of not just our country, but the world. It's sick. These 7 pieces of information you will never see in the bought-off lamestream fake media. Why? Because that media, as I mentioned before, is a tentacle of the deep state. They want to strip you of your remaining freedoms, your liberties, your health, your life. Many people outside that window in Ann Arbor, People's Republic of Ann Arbor, have accused me of being a conspiracy theorist and speaking about this for the past 10 years. Over the past 10 years, I have been proven absolutely correct. It might be conspiracy, but it's conspiracy reality and conspiracy fact. And anyone and everyone that puts their head in the sand on these issues is going to be the first victims of the deep state when that, quote, great reset, end quote, occurs that was discussed in that first piece of information I presented you today. I hope you'll join us for the radio show. I hope you'll join us as a subscriber to our platform at davejanda.com. The biggest bang for the buck. I know you will not be disappointed. Until next time, Dave Janda signing off. Dream big and dare to fail. Thanks for your time today.